zoning board regular meetings and all city commission chamber is Wednesday. Take the roll call.
Sure. Everybody want to turn on your microphone so we can hear clearly, please. Mark Hum,
Here.
Juan Cotton,
Here.
Ed LeBlanc,
Here.
Zage Shamsi Basha,
Here.
and Dan Waleski,
Here.
Evelyn Urcuyo, Alexander Cole.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Stand up, pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have any additions, deletions, recording, approval of the agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman, there is going to be one item that is being continued, but that will need a separate vote under that agenda item.
Will it be done today?
Mhm.
Okay.
It'll be continued today to the December 14th meeting.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so the approval of the minutes for PZB November 2nd, 2022 regular minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from December, what was it?
November 2nd, 2022.
November 2nd,
2022.
2022.
Wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. For the cases, I'd like to swear in the staff and applicants.
Please stand and raise your right hand if you plan to give testimony. If you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If so, say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any withdrawals, postponement?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Consent, anything on the consent agenda that I would love to hear about?
No.
Nothing? Okay. Board disclosure. Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, so we have some unfinished business. Anything? It looks like that's clear and clear. All right, new business. PZB project number 22-014000004. Ordinance 2022-17, a request for residential plan development. Development of significant impact, major site plan, conditional use, and sustainable bonus for the project commonly referred to as Residences of Lake Worth. To construct 3 mid-rise residential structures that are 5 stories in height with a total of 195 dwelling units. Sustainable bonus request for an additional 3 stories in height. Interesting. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Planning and Zoning Board. Erin Sita, Assistant Director for Community Sustainability for the record. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, the item is Ordinance 2022-17. In addition to the request for the residential plan development of significant impact, major site plan, conditional use, and sustainable bonus request, and the applicant is also requesting to opt in to the new Affordable Workforce Housing Program, which is under Ordinance 2022-12. And just noting for the record, Evelyn arrived, if you can note the time. Thank you. This will provide or deed restrict a total of 48 units. Because the applicant is opting into the program to take advantage of the parking reduction, 30 units will be required, and they are adding an additional 18 units as well. So you can see here the project is generally located on the west side of town. It is just east to the E4 Canal, north of 2nd Avenue North. The zoning is also mixed use west. Again, walking you through, this is just a re-summary plan development, DSI, major site plan, and it is for 195 units. There is an amenity building. Each of the buildings will have approximately 65 units. And we talked a lot about conditional use permits versus administrative use permits and the threshold. So any residential that's above 7,500 square feet requires a conditional use permit. And every application type, whether it's a plan development, DSI, major site plan, conditional use permit, all has its own individual review criteria. And all those review criteria are listed in your staff report with staff analysis attached. Again, the sustainable bonus request is for the 3 stories with the 48 workforce housing deed restricted units. Here's a bird's eye view. There is a cell tower in the northeast corner of the property. And again, you can see another aerial view as well. The surrounding properties are all mixed use west and are predominantly multifamily, except for the E4 Canal right of way. Looking at the site plan, you can see 2 of the structures, a front of 2nd Avenue North with the 3rd multifamily structure facing the lake amenity area with walking path. There is a clubhouse and a pool. There will be approximately 79 1-bedroom units, 68 2-bedroom units. There are 296 required parking spaces with the 48 workforce housing units. The applicant meets the parking requirement. They are utilizing in alternative spaces, 19 bike racks and 54 compact spaces, which is less than the maximum of 25% of alternate spaces allowed. Here's an architectural rendering. This is facing 2nd Avenue North, and the applicant will walk you through the details of the architecture a little bit more. Again, the side elevation. This elevation will be the elevation facing both 2nd Avenue North and the lake/rear property line. So the sustainable bonus request, as we've discussed before, anything over the 2nd story within the city is subject to sustainable bonus program. So 50%, so their total calculated value is $1.142 $1,142,190, 50% of which will be required to be paid to the city. The other 50% value will be provided in equivalent improvements equivalent in value, or not less than the $571,000. A part of that will be met by the 18 workforce housing units. They're proposing 6 EV charging stations and a Florida Green Building certification. The EV charging stations are not required per our code because this is a residential only property. We only require EV for mixed use and for commercial projects. There are conditions of approval related to the on-site improvements and the additional workforce housing units. Again, staff has analyzed with basically all the criteria in our comp plan, strategic plan, land development regulations, including general harmony and protection of the public interest, criteria for plan developments, qualitative development standards, community appearance criteria, specific standards for conditional uses, and the review and decision criteria for the sustainable bonus program. Your motions are in your staff report. And just a note for the record, I had changed it, but I don't think I saved it. So the consequent action here is that you are a recommending body because this is an ordinance, and the final decision will be the city commission. This will be as an ordinance and a plan development. This will go to 2 readings before the city commission. Okay. And one more note, again, this was a typo that I thought I had changed, is that 50% of the bonus shall be paid to we had incorrectly calculated the sustainable bonus at first for the value of the improvements. So the correct payment is the $571,000. And other than that, staff has no condition changes. That concludes our presentation. Brian Terry is going to of Insight Design Studios, right? Insight Studios is going to present for the applicant. Just
Drive or do
I have to drive because the thing doesn't ever work, but give me a second.
Good evening. It's nice to see everyone. My name is Brian Terry with Insight Studio. Here on behalf of the owner and developer, Jesse Wopels here with the Richmond Group. We have the architect, Rick Patton with Bear Font. We have representation from Simmons and White, our engineer, and Shane Lasco is also here with the Richmond Group, and Thomas Shumalewski is with my office. So hopefully we can answer any questions that you guys have. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. And I will apologize because my front end of my presentation is very similar to what Aaron just showed you. So we'll try to maybe skip through a little bit of this. If you can. So I think you're familiar with this site location, obviously, kind of west of Boutwell Road on the E4 Canal. This was obviously a part of a property that had a previous approval that was called Village of Valor. This is now something that we're looking to redefine that approval for this affordable and residential development. Next slide. Again, Aaron very touched on the land use and zoning. We are in the mixed use west district for both land use and zoning districts, and consistent obviously with the properties that are directly adjacent to us. Obviously the Lake Worth property bound or the municipal boundary is just to the west of E4 Canal. As you can see, Aaron did note the fact that the communication tower is on the property. That is going to remain. That's a lease that's in place. There is access easement that runs along the eastern portion of the property, as you can see highlighted in orange. And so we're kind of working with all the property, around that piece. You can see, I think our aerial shows, obviously there's some less tree material than was on that aerial that Aaron had shown. There was a lot of invasive material that was on the property that had been removed. And so this is what this property looks like today. A couple of photographs. This is looking east. So again, kind of looking down 2nd Avenue to the east, you can see we put the fence up and secure or the screen there, but you can see the tower in the background. And then the next picture, next slide, please, is kind of looking at that eastern boundary. Next. So this is the proposed development plan. This is a rendering, obviously, of the plan that was presented in Aaron's presentation. As you can see, the configuration of the buildings. We actually worked quite a bit in the beginning of this project. We've had multiple configurations of how that site would lay out best. Really wanted trying to help to promote the development of the streetscape along 2nd Avenue, bringing those buildings to the forefront, bringing them along the roadway itself. We do have some significant landscape and streetscape improvements that I'll touch on a little bit later. But again, we have the residential plan development, the DSI, because we're over the 100,000 square feet in gross square footage, 195 total units, multifamily for the conditional use permit. And we are requesting those 3 bonus stories through the sustainable bonus. This was, again, just noting where the communication tower sits on that proposed plan up there in the northeast corner with the E4 Canal. If you can go to the next one, please. You can see how, again, there's three buildings total, each of them 5-story, each of them, they're identical buildings, so 65 units apiece in each one of those, with the recreation amenity right there in the center. Next one, please. So you can see a couple of the, again, this is sort of a bird's eye perspective from, again, the from the southwest. But you can see that unit breakdown. Our numbers are slightly different than what you quoted, Aaron, but I think we'll make sure that we get that clear between the two of us. But we have 105 1-bedrooms and 92 bedrooms in the overall development. And you can see, again, as was noted, we're contributing 25% of those, or dedicating 25% of those as workforce units for a total of 48. Next, please. As I mentioned, Rick is here. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions specific to the architecture, but you can see, again, the scale of the buildings along the roadway. Again, we worked with your staff, Mr. Waters, talking about the architecture, talking about bringing some color, trying to make it very much consistent with Lake Worth Beach. And so this is the result of that collaboration. Go to the next one, please. This is kind of an interior shot. Next one. I did want to talk a little bit about the recreation amenities. We do have a very significant water retention requirement on this properties within the C51 basin. So you'll see there's a large lake that's going to be on the backside of the property. We wanted to structure, make sure we had one of those buildings that were kind of taking advantage of that. We are looping a walkway and pedestrian walkway around that entire lake. And the yellow lines represent that pedestrian connectivity throughout the entire property. So it's all connected. We will have a dog park. And again, that central amenity, if you go to the next slide, I think there's an architectural perspective of that building. Again, that's a 1-story that'll house the recreation amenities as well as the leasing offices for the site. Next one. And the pool amenity that is going to be fed off of the main clubhouse building. Next one. We are proposing the site to be fully gated and secured. So there is the yellow line represents security fence that goes around the entire property. You'll see that just to the east of that yellow line is where that access easement is that leads back to the communication tower. So we have kind of a median divided entrance road with gates, an entrance gate to the right, and then an exiting gate to the left. Parking, we are taking advantage of the reduction for the affordable and workforce housing program. So this is a breakdown. It's in the site tabular data from the site plan that kind of explains how that's calculated. It's basically a reduction on those 25% of those units. And so we meet the criteria, the parking demand for the site. And then we've also provided for some on-street parallel parking spaces that's consistent with what has occurred on the south side of 10th Avenue. So again, trying to expand and continue the improvements that had been started on second. Next. For the sustainable bonus, these are the dollar values. Aaron noted the $571,095, which will be the contribution, and then how we meet the expectation for the remaining 50%. As you can see, we well exceed that dollar value by what's being proposed with the workforce units, the certification, as well as the EV spaces.
And Brian, I'll just note on your presentation, the reason why staff and Brian have a slightly different number is they're estimating the cost to the applicant. In our resolution by the City Commission, there's a maximum that we can credit for that accreditation. And that is, it's basically 25% of the total value. So that's why that's a little different in the staff report.
Yes. Checking the boxes here, obviously we have our letter from Palm Beach County School District as well as Palm Beach County Traffic, their approval that were associated with this proposed. We did host a neighborhood outreach meeting. That was done. We did public mailings. Like we mailed everybody within, I think it was 500 foot radius.
400, yeah.
500 foot radius. We actually, on our website, we have a specific page dedicated to this project, have posted on the site as well as within the letter, so people can go online, they can click on the link, and they can see this information about the neighborhood meeting. And then we hosted the neighborhood meeting for 2 hours. Unfortunately, there wasn't a huge amount of folks who came and attended, but it was a good experience.
Right. And just so you are aware, board, just to add to Brian's comment, this is this developer meeting requirement was an ordinance that was adopted earlier this year for projects that are over a certain threshold are required to have a developer meeting.
Of our presentation. So again, we certainly are happy to any questions and we appreciate staff's recommendations for everyone with
Question, I have a few. The distribution of the units for affordable housing, are they limited to one building? How are they distributed in different buildings? Are they all on the first floor? How do you?
So we haven't decided that.
Great. And you have to sit down.
You hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, we haven't decided that. We can do it either way. We would prefer to just do it rolling. So it's a mix between all the buildings, and as they become available, we'll lease it that way.
Yeah. The issue becomes because a lot of affordable housing has gotten pigeonholed into one section, like in New York, that had all the affordable housing people coming through the back door, right? Like where the garbage came in and everything else, right? So not so nice. And I think there's been a stigma to it with a lot of developments that all of a sudden people get stuck in like one corner, right? And it creates, it's not part of the fun of having
Yeah.
this.
That's not what we tend to do here. As I said, it will be, as they become available, no matter what building they're in, will be qualified for the AMI.
Okay, I mean, great in theory, but I just, the idea would be to have something that would work out. That's one thing. The second thing is, what did the traffic reports? How, Aaron, were the traffic reports? I mean, I don't know, you must have looked. at them.
So they met traffic concurrency. They are in an exemption area.
Mhm.
But do you have your traffic engineer as far as volume turn? I mean, I didn't see anything than what the normal like unit count would require. I mean, there's going to be traffic. It's right.
Right,
Like,
of course. But
I mean, it's a huge vacant parcel. So if we want to put stuff on it, people are going to need to drive there,
Right.
so.
One of the improvements that did occur from conversation with the county as well as city staff was we're going to be producing a left turn lane. So if you're eastbound Second Avenue, we'll be turning left and going north into our development site. There will be a turn lane created, because of road widening.
we'll leave a little bit.
It'll allow for cars that are trying to stack or need to make that turn and allow, cars to continue down and not.
Right. So you have two issues with your plan. One, there's no motorcycle parking, which is odd because you took a lot of bike parking, which is cool, right? But at the same time, the motorcycle parking, we probably get a couple of extra points for getting those motorcycles in instead of, the compact cars or whatever.
Right.
You can get 2 spaces, and correct me if I'm wrong, within that spot if you put the motorcycles. And I'm sure we have a few motorcycles there, so you might take advantage of that. And the second part about it is where your garbage dumpster is. I think that we don't always have the best garbage chauffeurs here. And I think there's a few turns you're going to take into there that might be a little funky, but I leave that to you or the operations people that are going to run it. So I'm just looking at your site layout or whatever. So it just looks a little bit out to the back, but hey, if you guys have worked it out, that's fine.
We did, we specified work on that and showed it not only the garbage structure, fire truck, but
Oh, fire truck.
so they need to. So we feel pretty helpful. Not to say that they still won't.
Yeah, they're gonna, fire truck will probably go right in the middle of that place because it's just
Right.
wide open. It's the garbage truck that but it's fine. But I put a few motorcycle parking spots in there because I didn't see any on the list.
Work
So,
out.
yeah, but anyway, okay. So I had to say.
I will note, for the sake of this board, that on that 600 to 700 stretch on Second Avenue North, if there are any regards in terms of traffic impact beyond that stated in the traffic impact study, I will note that there really only appears to be one other entrance and exit from a property and facility there. A entrance and exit that exists just east down the road, and even then, I'm glancing at it Google Maps now, but I know that I've actually driven by there quite a few times, not for the sake of this, just on my way to a friend who lives nearby. But if I recall correctly, they don't even use that entrance and exit. So there is actually a very firm possibility that this property would be the only property with an entrance and exit actually affecting this 700 stretch of Second Avenue North.
Is there any public comment?
I have no public comment today.
It was a lonely developer meeting.
Apparently,
We had fun.
Yeah, I could.
they're too busy working on the sign.
I actually have a question for staff. I don't know if it's a question for them exactly, but in terms of the developer meeting, you said it was 400 square feet, or what was the distance around?
Yeah, it's a 400-foot radius around the boundaries of the property.
Is it at all possible to expand that at all? Just because on that side of the town, isn't as.
So The developer meeting, it's 400 feet. To change it would be a code amendment, would be an LDR amendment. Most of the city does not have, a 400 feet is a huge distance in the city for the most of it. I will say, I hear what you're saying in this particular one, but they also posted very large signs, 36 by 44 inches, all along the whole front facade. They mailed a letter to every property owner within 400 feet. They posted the meeting on the city calendar. They did a social media outreach and they had a web page. And then, and then this meeting also got another 400-foot notice. So everyone within 400 feet got 2 letters prior to this hearing. And there was also the meeting notice, the agenda publication, and the legal notice as well.
Okay, so I'm just curious about the people outside of that forum.
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point when if you see a sign, you're going to be impacted. You're probably going to drive by that property. There's only so much notice people can provide. And there's a sign on the property all along the edge. And there's a sign for this meeting, and there's a legal notice, and there's a web page. I mean, I think with the response that we've seen, usually in the city, if there is a sign in the yard and people are upset about it, you will have a line out the door. I'll just put it like that. You know, like, I mean, I don't know how much more notice they could have
And,
frankly.
in terms of the developer meeting, did you talk about, I know you said we're only 2 people that were there, but
Full of 4.
4, oh, great.
Right, only 2 ended up signing the sign-in sheet, but that could be 4.
Was design of the building part of the conversation?
We talked about, we presented, we had, so everything that you saw as far as those renderings, so we had those printed off 24 by 36. We had them all available. We showed everybody who was of the 4 of them, each of the renderings. There really wasn't much discussion or input that came back from the folks who attended.
And that's locked in place, I'm assuming now. The design.
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
So if you all have comments about the design and you'd like to see it change a little bit, or you'd like to get feedback, as a board, you can agree to some consensus direction. So if you all feel it needs more this or needs more that, you can make that recommendation to the applicant, to the city commission, and the applicant to take that into consideration. So if there's something that you would like to change about it, if you guys don't like the color, maybe you don't like orange and you feel orange is not. So if we're reacting to the orange, maybe you if everybody hates the orange collectively, just be like, hey, we don't like orange. Would it be cool if you changed the orange? Or we need more windows, or we'd like a little, we feel like the proportions need to be a little more balanced. Maybe you could score it differently, or you could do whatever. This is an attainable housing program. It's going to have 48 units of 195. It's not going to be a luxury. So you need to also product. So you need to balance your design comments, with what it's going to cost to construct. So think about what you'd like to see changed and make that comment for sure. It's
Right, yeah, so I used to do, I worked in New Jersey City. And a lot of the designs I've seen and a lot of designs that I've seen so far since joining this board have been exactly the same, in my opinion. And I just, one of the reasons that brought me to Lake Worth was because of the character of it. And I've noticed also, but it's at the same time, it's along Dixie or on the west side of 95. So it doesn't, I feel like the same character that Lake Worth Beach has isn't being brought over. But again, I'm not gonna oppose based on my personal opinion. But if there are any other designers that might be listening to this, I would love something different. That's all.
Two questions here. The impermeable surface, it shows give 49%, look like a quad page area on the plan. How is that achieved by pervious paving material?
No, it's actually, that is the calculation based on, so anything that's not a building, anything that's not a parking lot or a sidewalk. You calculate as pervious space, so that is the have to provide the AutoCAD file actually.
Does that include the drainage lake?
It doesn't.
That's why you're seeing a lot of pavement around the buildings is because they have to have that big lake.
And what you don't see on this plan, but if you look here, and there is a lot. I would say about 3/4, if not more than that, of what's a lot, also stormwater bridge. So the expect or the requirement is really high. Part of the plan. It's extremely limited.
So under the sustained bonus program, I believe it's an NGBS, that's National Green Building Standard. So you opted for that rather than Florida.
We have, that's our right. Like, that's
My other question is about related to the attainable housing income. Could we just have a really quick summary of where that falls? You know that?
So they're required to meet the attainable housing levels that are in the ordinance. They're opting into the ordinance program, so they will need to meet those requirements that are in the ordinance. I can pull it up. We just started implementing, so I don't have it in my brain yet off the top. I will next time, but I can pull it up.
Everybody should have an idea, because I know, we're talking about attainable housing. Where are we? What?
They're proposed, it's workforce housing. It is workforce housing, and which is between 60 and I think we said 100 and the county's program is between 60 and 140% of median income. Median income right now is roughly for the county-wide about $90,000. So the program itself talks, our levels are actually a little bit different in the way we calculate the levels. So it's not an apples to apples, but when they deed restrict and I believe they're opting to utilize the county program. Is that correct? To deed restrict? Are you going to deed restrict through the city? Have you decided?
Well, we haven't decided, but if we're deed restricted, we can go.
Okay, so if they would deed restrict through the city, they would deed restrict through exactly the ordinance. If they deed restrict through the county program, they might be they might choose to do that. But when the deed restrictions through the county program match, but the match is like, so the county has like 60 to 80%. So our match is like 60 to 70%. So they would have to tweak their county deed restrictions to match ours because they have to be equal to or better than our price point. So we would work that out on the back end when we were, Elizabeth would. Okay. This one is going to be the one reviewing the deed restrictions. Surprise, Elizabeth. She's going to be reviewing the deed restrictions.
What?
It is the median for
Palm Beach County median family income of $90,300.
Mm-hmm. So
the way the city has done the price points is whereas the county's program offers a range based on when you buy in. So you have your range of what your rent can be. The city adjusts year to year or allows for adjustment year to year, but it's based on the unit type and the number of occupants you can have in the unit type.
So even if they utilize the county program, they have to utilize the deed restriction or the covenant document has to be, the price point level has to be equivalent or better to the city program to qualify for the unit. And they need to distribute those units. Let's change. I'll pull it up.
Unrelated to this specific conversation, but this would be the, I believe, second project we've had come up for workforce housing. Would it be possible to get, doesn't even have to be in a meeting, just an email or a memo? Could we get a write-up of some sort for the county and the city workforce and obtainable housing program so we could get a little bit better idea of the finer points of it?
Sure. And really the only one, because they're opting into our program for this, So the city commission has recently adopted its own workforce housing program.
Understood.
So they are opting into the new program that was recently adopted by the city commission and have to comply with those provisions.
Understood. Yeah, no, because I'm quite familiar with the county program. I, even have the spreadsheet ready to go right over here. But when it comes to the city program, I'm fairly unfamiliar. So if there's any additional information we could get from city staff in between this meeting and the next one, so we could,
We'll send you the ordinance and we can have a conversation. So they're proposing a 1-bedroom unit, which for a 1-bedroom unit, the gross household income shall not exceed 65% of the area median income.
area in the city program is defined consistently with the county program,
Yes.
and that it is median county family
Mhm.
income.
Right. So that would be that number, that about $90,000 number.
90.3, yeah.
And so for a 1-bedroom unit, they could not charge more than the annual gross household income shall not exceed 65% of the area median income and rent. So the equivalent of that.
Thank you. Understood. Much appreciated.
I wonder, do you have a fence design? We discussed that there'd be a fence on our property. Do we have a regulation? Do we know what that looks like? Or signage too?
If believe me. So, along Second Avenue North, you did a 5-foot tall black. So kind of your typical decorative aluminum picket, so along what's really visible there, and obviously that extends into the entrance area where the gates are and will connect into the pool building. And then around the perimeter, the rest of the perimeter, where you have like vinyl chain that would really go around the backside and top side. And again, you look at the landscape plan associated with it, there are shrubs, trees that are all planted directly adjacent to that.
So the fence is set back.
Right.
Do you have any other projects in Palm Beach County that you've done?
Richmond Group, so I'm the land planner and landscape architect. Yes, we have multitude, but Richmond has many that would be very similar.
And you maintain the property and the apartments?
Yeah, we are merchant builders. Yeah, we actually develop it all for our own account, unlike most people. We actually hold them for the long term, so we're very tight to what we design and how we maintain the property. We have other properties in Palm Beach County, Boca View, just did on the former Boca View golf course. And that also has a workforce component to it. And it's the same way described, it's not like a specific building for project.
And that one was a battle, wasn't it?
Well, right there.
Never mind. Never mind.
Well, let's stay on topic because I'm sure they have some more stories.
No, that was.
I don't have any questions.
Last question, was a flood determination or risk analysis done on the property in lieu of the lake in the back, proposed lake, as well as the canal to the west?
That sounds like a technical question. I'm not sure I can answer.
I understand.
So they're in the C51 basin. And so some of our board members are new. So they may not understand what the C51 basin is, but the C51 canal is the major east-west canal in the county. And if that canal has too much water going to it at one time, it can slow down a lot or stop working properly altogether, which would be super bad. Okay. So what the Water Management District has done is they've have a C51 design standards, which are very, very restrictive. They're probably some of the most restrictive in the county as far as how much water you have to retain on site, and they far exceed our own city requirements. So is there anything else? Did you have your civil? Where's your civil? Yeah, we need your civil.
There we go.
Eliminating Dave Barrett and listen to what's for this project. So, as explained, the C51 is comprised of multiple sub-basins, that you say, as determined by the Water Management District. And this specific site is, it meets those requirements, that specific location. The basis of it is, there's been a determination of how much water the site holds. And the reason for the lake and the additional underground is to compensate for that filling of the. So as part of the one basin, you have to meet or exceed the storage that's already on site, the physical storage. So that's something that's why there's so much, because this area, based on the topography and the survey, we take all that into account and make sure that, and that's part of our reviews with other permitting agencies as well. We'll be required to meet that as we move forward prior to.
Understood. I am noting that according to FEMA, the base flood elevation is 11. I'm unable to get a flood zone determination. Do we happen to have any idea what flood zone we're looking at? Just to be clear, I'm not concerned that this property will, find itself drowned in the future or anything like that, but it is more so. This is my profession showing through. I'm a risk manager by trade. And so something that I often recommend to developers that have potential flood risk is to recommend first floor properties obtain flood insurance. It's like $80 a year when it's contents only. I'm unable to pull a flood zone determination, but I guess especially with Nicole and Ian and countless calls and clients my last few weeks, it's fresh on my mind. So I suppose this is nothing that I will add to the motion, but just a recommendation as someone who's dealt with a lot of flooded out people the last few weeks is my recommendation would be to double check the flood zone. And if it's anything other than BC or X, please do make a recommendation to first floor clients who
Alex,
form of flood insurance. I'm breaking the rules, aren't I?
No. I just want to tell you the background because any new construction in a flood zone, if it has what's called a BFE or a base flood elevation, the first floor has to exceed the base flood elevation plus an additional foot.
Fantastic.
So that is already codified. And so that's all taken care of. And in fact, we have, so the city we participate in the FEMA CRS system, which gives our residents a discount on their flood insurance. And so as part of that, we have more stringent requirements related to our flood map. And that's why we've adopted the FEMA base flood elevation plus 12 inches and then there's also since, I think the last 10 years, the city didn't have for new projects like a minimum design standard for drainage. That's been adopted. So there's been a lot of things done to address flooding. And some of the flooding issues that we experience are, our city's been here for 100 years. So the folks coming in who are developing now are under a totally different set of rules than those folks in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so hopefully we won't get some of our trouble spots will not be repeated for sure. And I can look up that flood zone. I think it's an X. Is it an X or is it an?
Part of it is zone 8.
Okay.
But the part of the zone 80 elevation, base flood elevation is within maybe a tenth of what the C51 is. That's what C51 follows. And so not only are we compensating for that storage, but the elevations have been set so that they are at least more than above it.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Question?
I'd like to make a motion to approve with conditions of ordinance 2022-17 for residential plan development, major site plan, conditional use and sustainable bonus initiative program to construct a 195 unit multifamily residential development at the subject site based on the competent and substantial evidence provided in the staff report and in testimony of the public hearing.
And Dan, just to note, that includes the staff modification read into the record during the hearing.
Yes, it does.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay. A roll call? Evelyn? Evelyn?
Evelyn? Just yay or nay,
Oh,
everybody.
aye.
Evelyn?
Yay, yay.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Good luck.
You.
Probably. Okay, PZB project 22 -01400016. Consideration of major site plan conditional use permit and sustainable bonus incentive program request for the project commonly referred to as the Perch. Located at 7th North B Street. The project proposes to construct a 3-story, 18-unit multifamily.
One, you have to stop mumbling. I'm gonna read it. You gotta read it.
18-unit multifamily development consisting of a 9-unit apartment style building and a 9-unit townhouse building. The sustainable bonus request is for additional height. This item is being continued on December 14th PZB meeting.
So we need a motion, a second, and a vote.
I
As
would make a
Elizabeth was
motion
about to say.
to continue to the December 14th, 2022
Second,
22 meeting.
I'll second. Okay, vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, December 14th is that date. Now, do we have planning issues? Let me see.
No planning issues, no public comments. And then our only note in department reports is, as you all have agreed, we've swapped the planning and zoning board meeting from the first Wednesday of the month, just for the public, to the second Wednesday of the month, only for the month of December. And we've, as you know, staff has put out 12 agenda items this month between planning and zoning board and historic. So this gives us a little bit more time because we have we probably will have 3 projects on that 14th meeting that are in the downtown corridor, and they will have a different architectural style. They will have more of a Dutch colonial. So hopefully, I don't know, you guys may or may not enjoy that. So we'll see.
The question, let me see, okay, what about the January meeting? Will it still be on?
So it'll be the third Wednesday of the month,
Okay.
because I don't want to work Christmas week and prepare a packet for you all.
Right. Okay. Any public comments? Okay, the department reports, a reminder, the next PZB meeting, then December 14th. Board member comments.
I just wanted to apologize for not being able to make the meeting on the 2nd, and I appreciate the city for being so understanding with my poor planning at the time. Long story short, Mama Call hasn't been doing so hot recently, so I had to hop on a plane. So I very, very, very much appreciate everyone, stepping in my absence. Not that I'm, the one crucial piece to all of this, but regardless, I really do appreciate the understanding from the city staff and fellow board members. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just 2 comments, but I just don't know if this is like the right place to say it. Again, I just want to kind of reiterate of my concern about how much outreach. I know that at the end of the day, it's up to us as civilians to see what's going on in our town, but I don't know if it's something that I'm personally going to do in terms of community outreach. But I just feel like, when certain things do get approved and actually do get out there, it does cause some public concern or comments or opinions, etc. But I just wanted to make a note of that. And also, I know this is probably just not us exactly, but it's just this workforce housing term. I just not comfortable with it. I don't know. I just don't know about that, but that's all. That's all my comments.
Oh, but
If I may, if you're going for all of you, since we just mentioned this, I want to make sure to give you guys a little tip. If you are going to put out some more social media outreach or, talk to friends about projects that are coming through that you want to make sure that word is getting out around the community, make sure that you are keeping your messages and providing them to staff, that you are not providing any sort of opinion on them, because most of your projects that come before you are quasi judicial and you cannot have a pre-biased opinion of them. You can put the information out, just, we have public hearings, come and see them, come and weigh in. But make sure you limit your content that you're putting out, and make sure that staff gets copies of content that you're putting out that is city related, and any comments you receive back.
And a conflict can make, if you put out comment that's determined to be too prejudicial, you may not be able to vote on an item.
No, I understand. It's more about, hey, there's going to be like the thing they did at Matthews. I love Matthews. I go there often. I probably would have gone there and brought friends with me, just so they could, be aware and make their own opinions. So it's more like that. It's honestly one of the main reasons why I even joined the board, is for that community outreach.
But we sometimes have, issues, developments, that have not necessarily come before us, have not come before us yet. Sometimes it's hard to make that issue.
So everything that's going to come before you will have a sign in the yard.
And a PZB number.
A PZB number and if it's a planned development, we'll have an ordinance number as well. Nobody reads a newspaper, but all the legal notices are now, if you want to sign up for legal notices for the public to listen to, you can sign up through the state has a legal notice, which can flag legal notices related to land development cases for your jurisdiction. And you can get those emails. It will send you an email in your inbox when there's anything based on the jurisdiction that you're interested in that goes and is posted in a legal notice. We post predominantly through the Lake Worth Herald, which is signed up with the state service. So I sign up to monitor our own ordinances, and I get notices from the state that says, hey, you have a legal notice in your area. So, in addition, we do a 400-foot notice, which usually costs most applicants, this place being an exception, cost them between $300 to $400 in total postage with first class mail, because of the volume and density that we have. So most applicants that's their kind of mailing budget for how many property owners that they're individually mailing, is the equivalent of $300 to $400 in postage.
And I just want to add to that one of the reasons that the city adopted the 400-foot radius is because that is also the statutory radius that's required for certain projects. So we're being consistent.
And then we now have all of our large projects. We always ask our developers prior to do social media outreach, and have before. That has now been codified. So this project, each of the property owners within 400 feet each property owner is going to get 3 letters to their house. The sign is going to be up continuously along a pretty significant roadway for approximately 4 months. There'll be a social media outreach. The meetings will be posted on the webpage. You can sign up for the legal notice. So there's a limit to what we can ask applicants to do. You know what I mean? And then if you are interested in your community, you kind of have to, our agendas come out. The agendas are public. City commission agendas are out, I think, almost 2 weeks prior to the meeting now. You can sign up to have agendas monitored or be notified when they're published. There's a lot of things that you can do if you're interested and active and want to have a voice on projects. If anybody has any questions about any projects that they see a sign, they can email pzoning@lakeworthbeach.fl.gov and say, hey, I saw this sign on this property, and staff will roll it out. We'll share the file with all the pictures and site plans with you through a file share. We do it all. So anything that you're interested in, you give us a ring, you email us. There's 50 ways to contact us. So that's how and so there's also a limit though, because like we said, the 400-foot notice, most places in the city, that is a huge radius. Because our parcels are so small and we're so densely packed, there's also a cost to the applicant, and a lot of our projects are small. So we're looking at, I mean, that's a significant advertising cost plus legal ads cost, which runs most applicants pay. Dan, I know you guys do a lot of projects. What is your legal budget? It's like $600, probably at least.
Yeah, not much more. So, I mean, we don't really, we try not to budget a lot for that.
So anyway, so that's just kind of how much we try to be out there. And then, of course, if anybody has any questions, we also have a city map on the city webpage. It's project citywide. And if you look on there, every project that's in process, that's over 3 units, you can actually look on the interactive GIS map, and then all of those projects pop up and where they are in process as well. And we're getting ready to redesign that and link it to our planning and zoning page, so it's more user friendly than it. But it's all there, and it's all the city projects combined. So there's,
And one thing that I would add to all of that, which is on these larger projects that have that, especially like the one that we reviewed tonight, we're the first meeting. There's going to be 2 other meetings that goes to the commission. And typically people start getting more, it starts kind of get a groundswell. People are like, oh, did you see what just got approved at planning and zoning? And then it's got a first reading. And then even after the first reading, everybody's got a month to get together, a couple of weeks to get together before the next meeting. So, these do come forward multiple times. And if there is something that people feel strongly about, you tend to get a lot more turnout at those commission meetings. And then on the workforce housing, from a terminology perspective, it's kind of like you have to have some standardized language for it. So when you deal with affordable housing has traditionally anything below 60% of the AMI. And then when you get into 30% below, that's called extremely low income. And then workforce has now been kind of the new category, and that's 140 down to the affordable, which ends at 60. And then anything above that is just considered market rate.
And those are also statutorily
those are
described terms.
Those are defined terms. But
just to add, because I know this has come up again, just to double down, city, would we be able to get a little bit of a write-up and some explanations for our board here for the county program and the city workforce housing program? As I imagine, we'll be seeing additional projects in the future.
We'll do the city program because the county program is the county's program. And now that we have our city program, everybody has to meet the income levels in our program.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we'll walk you through that.
Much
All right.
Appreciated.
And we'll just send you the ordinance, and we'll do that maybe as maybe not in December, maybe for the January meeting, because we have 3, the 3 projects will be a lot. So maybe due in January, we'll go through the workforce housing. Okay.
I imagine even then just a memo and an email may even suffice for this, but hey, we'll see. I'd love to hang out.
Okay. 2 little things for myself. I think that they've been getting a little bit of blowback on the community meeting thing about, why is Lake worth doing it or whatever. I'd like to add that probably every city in the state of Florida does that, and I don't know why we didn't do it. Miami Beach, Boga, a bunch of places, Palm Beach, and they have that. So I think it's about time that Lake Worth did do it. So great, thank you very much. At the second time, I have to say that I do find the building that was presented today refreshing. And I think that there isn't enough modern architecture that's been here from before. And I think if you look at the numbers, it's something that adds to the diversity of what's coming in. There are a lot of historic buildings that have been redone in the historic districts, and they'll stay that way as well. So I think something like this is actually a positive thing to Lake Worth. So thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All I've got.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And for adjournment, are we ready to
Adjournment?
go?